Animals have a way of surprising us with just how clever they can be. This one small cat showed up at a fish shop with a leaf, and what happened next caught everyone off guard. This little cat had been hanging around the shop for a few days. Julio, the owner, had a soft spot for animals and wouldn't let his staff scare the cat away. The cat would just sit quietly in the shade, watching through the glass window. It almost looked like he was observing how people acted inside the store. But any time Julio or a worker tried to get close, the cat would dart off. He didn't want to be touched. He was just there, watching. Still, it started to seem like maybe he was studying how people traded money for fish. Cats have been offering little gifts to people for ages, ever since they started living around humans. If a cat feels close to you, it might drop a mouse by your bed or leave a toy in its food bowl. These animals are smart, and they know how to get our attention. This particular cat wasn't going to be any different. He came by the shop so often that Julio and the regulars began calling him Salmon because of his constant visits to the fish store. Salmon was always calm, and his polite behavior made people smile. But one day, something totally unexpected happened. For the first time ever, Salmon actually stepped inside the shop. In his mouth, he was carrying a leaf. People inside the store turned to look as he quietly got in line with the others. He stood there, waiting his turn just like everyone else. He didn't jump ahead or beg. He simply watched the customers hand over money and walk out with their fish. Then the line moved forward, and so did he. When it was finally his turn, people were on edge, curious to see what he would do next. Some shoppers had already finished, but stayed back just to watch. It was clear this little cat had something in mind. He hopped up onto the counter and gently placed the leaf in front of Julio. Then he just waited, eyes wide, body still. It only took a moment for everyone to get it. He was trying to buy a fish with that leaf. The room filled with laughter and amazement. He had seen customers hand over paper, and in his eyes, the leaf looked close enough. He wasn't being sneaky. He wasn't trying to grab the fish and run. He was offering what he had in the way he understood. A simple trade. He wanted a meal, just like the others. Julio looked down at him, this small cat, standing there with a leaf like it was a treasure. How could anyone say no to that? Julio reached down, picked out a small fish, and handed it to the cat. Salmon looked thrilled with his little prize. He grabbed the fish, ran outside, and settled in to enjoy his well-earned meal. Everyone who saw it couldn't stop smiling. It was just one of those sweet moments that sticks with you. The story spread quickly among customers, and people kept talking about the clever cat who came to buy fish with a leaf. No one expected it to happen again anytime soon. But they were wrong. The very next day, it happened again. Julio was busy in the back when a staff member came to get him. "Your favorite customer is here," they said with a smile. And there was Salmon, back in line, leaf in mouth, waiting patiently for his turn to buy more fish. Julio couldn't help but grin. He was more than happy to serve him. Julio's family had run that fish shop for years. When he was a kid, he'd go out on fishing trips with his dad to help catch what they'd sell. Later, Julio took over the fishing, and his dad stayed behind to handle the sales. Over time, they grew the business bit by bit. Now that Julio was running things, he still went out on the boat once or twice a week, but most days his crew handled the catches. Over the years, their customers had come to know them well. Some had even watched Julio grow up. But even with all those years and faces, no one had ever been as loyal as Salmon the cat. Rain or shine, cold or warm, Salmon showed up every single day. Some days his leaf would be wet and floppy from the rain. Other times it was just a tiny piece because the rest had crumbled away. Still, without fail, he came to buy his fish. Julio started keeping a small one ready just for him. And on the days Julio wasn't around, his wife and staff all knew exactly which fish to set aside. It became clear to everyone that Julio had grown quite attached to his little customer. He often found himself wondering about Salmon's life outside the shop. Where did he sleep? Was he safe? Was someone taking care of him? Eventually, Julio decided he couldn't just keep wondering. He had to help. He picked a quiet spot behind the shop and turned it into a cozy little space, just in case Salmon wanted it. He placed a covered cat bed under a sheltered corner, with a bowl of water and some cat kibble. Salmon still got his daily fish, of course, but Julio figured he might like something different once in a while. And even though the cat was starting to look stronger, Julio knew winter was on the way. One fish a day wouldn't be enough to keep him healthy when the cold came. Julio lived right next door, so he could peek out the window now and then to check on Salmon. And when he finally spotted the little cat curled up in that bed, sleeping soundly, it felt like a huge win. Julio's wife and the shop staff couldn't help but smile watching him. It was kind of funny seeing this tough fisherman get all excited over a tiny cat. But that's exactly what was happening. And even though she didn't say it out loud, Julio's wife had already started preparing herself for the idea that come winter they might just have another furry family member moving in. Still, no one could have predicted what was coming before the cold really hit. Salmon didn't always sleep in the little shelter Julio had made, but it was clear he knew it was there for him. That mattered. He had a safe place if he ever needed it. Most days, even if he didn't show up in the bed, he still came by the shop like clockwork, leaf in mouth, ready for his fish. Then one day, something felt off. Julio had been out running errands most of the afternoon, and he didn't get back to the shop until right before closing. As soon as he walked in, his heart sank. The little fish he always set aside for Salmon was still sitting on the ice, untouched. That had never happened. The staff hadn't seen him all day. It hit Julio like a wave. Something wasn't right. The cat hadn't missed a single day in more than 2 months. Where could he be? Julio didn't waste a second. He kept the shop open an extra hour, hoping Salmon might still come by. But he never did. He checked the shelter out back. Empty. The water and food hadn't been touched either. Julio felt a knot form in his chest. He walked around the block, softly calling for the cat, peeking in quiet corners where he might be hiding. Nothing. Then he grabbed his car keys and drove around the neighborhood, headlights sweeping the streets as the evening grew darker. He called out as he went, slowing down to check every spot a cat might tuck into, but it was no good. Eventually, he had to head back home, heart heavy, hoping there was some harmless reason for Salmon's absence. That night, Julio barely slept. His mind kept racing. His wife tried to calm him down, saying the cat would probably show up the next morning like usual. Julio wanted to believe that. But when the next day rolled around and the fish was still sitting there untouched by midday, his worry turned into real fear. His wife took over at the store, and Julio headed out again, determined to find the little cat. The staff promised to call him the moment Salmon came in, but that call never came. And just like Julio feared, something was wrong. Somewhere out there, Salmon was in real trouble. Julio was desperate. He drove around again, stopping often, searching every place he could think of, alleys, under porches, behind sheds. He knew Salmon wouldn't have gone far. He never had before. But now it felt like he was gone. The hope Julio had been holding on to started to slip away. Salmon was so small, and the world felt so big, and right now, far too quiet. Then Julio drove past a park, and something made him hit the brakes. Just off the side of the road, near the grass, he spotted a little bundle of fur that looked way too familiar. His heart dropped. He had been hoping to find Salmon tucked away somewhere, maybe hurt, but still okay. But this small shape wasn't moving. Julio's chest tightened as he got out of the car, dread building with every step. Any other day, if it had been a different animal or just a random bit of fluff, Julio might have driven past without a second thought. But not today. Not with that color. Not with Salmon still missing. He had to know. He walked closer, holding his breath. And then, there he was. It was Salmon. But Julio couldn't tell if he was alive. Just as panic started to set in, the tiny cat lifted his head ever so slightly and looked up at him. He was alive, but barely. His body was covered in wounds, and one of his legs looked completely broken. The other was twisted badly. It looked like he had been hit by a car and then left by the side of the road. Julio felt his heart break wide open. What could he do? Technically, this wasn't his cat. Salmon had just been a regular little visitor, not someone's official pet. But standing there, thinking of that sweet face, of the leaf he carried in every day, Julio already knew his answer. Taking a deep breath, he gently scooped the injured cat into his arms and rushed him to the vet. He didn't care what it cost. This little guy had worked so hard just to earn a fish each day. He mattered. Julio wasn't going to turn his back on him now. The vet looked him over right away. It wasn't good. Salmon had deep cuts and bruises all over, and both back legs were damaged, one broken and the other badly twisted. Surgery would be needed, and even then, recovery was going to take time. But the vet team believed there was a good chance he could pull through. While Salmon stayed at the vet clinic for treatment, Julio went all in trying to track down his family. He just couldn't believe a cat this gentle and smart didn't belong to someone. But after a full check, they found no microchip. Posters were put up all over the area, and calls were made, but no one ever came for him. It was hard to accept, but it looked like Salmon really had no home to return to. At first, that made Julio sad, but as the days passed, a different feeling started to take over. Hope. Julio had never had a cat before. He grew up with dogs and didn't know much about cats at all. But this one, this little leaf-carrying, fish-buying cat, was something else, and Salmon seemed to feel the same way. Every time Julio visited, the cat would perk up and try to get out of his enclosure just to reach him. He'd nuzzle into Julio's arms and stay there, completely at peace. Julio liked to believe that Salmon cared about him, not just the bits of fish he brought every day. The way the cat responded to him, the trust in his eyes, the way he relaxed when Julio held him, it felt deeper than just food. They were getting ready to bring him home, to make him part of the family for good. But then a phone call changed everything. Someone called and said they thought Salmon was their missing cat. Their cat, named Sandy, had vanished months ago, right around the same time Salmon first started showing up at the fish shop. It was possible, they said, that he had just been lost all that time. They sent over a few photos, and honestly, the cat did look a lot like Salmon. Julio tried to feel happy for the cat. After all, finding your original family should be a happy ending. But deep down, he couldn't deny it. It stung. He had been looking forward to bringing Salmon home. It already felt like Salmon belonged with them. The day before Salmon was set to leave the vet clinic, the family came to meet him. They were hopeful, excited. But things didn't go the way they expected. The woman looked at him closely and said, "He doesn't look quite like Sandy." Still, they tried to explain it away. Maybe the accident changed how he looked. Then the vet opened the enclosure, and Salmon darted out, straight into Julio's arms. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even glance at the couple standing nearby. When the woman stepped forward to pet him, Salmon backed away. And when she reached out again, he hissed. That shocked everyone. This was a cat who'd always been calm and polite, even around strangers at the shop. It was hard to watch. The woman was in tears, leaning into her husband, whispering that she couldn't believe their sweet Sandy would act like that. It didn't make sense. If this really was their cat, wouldn't there be some recognition, some sign of comfort? That's when the vet decided to ask about their cat's medical history, and that's when the truth came out. Sandy, their missing cat, was a spayed female and had been microchipped as a kitten. But Salmon was a neutered male and had no microchip when they first brought him in. As much as the couple wanted it to be true, Salmon wasn't their cat. It was a hard realization. They continued looking for Sandy for a long time, holding on to hope. Eventually, they adopted a rescue cat and poured their love into her instead. As for Salmon, he had already made his choice clear. Julio was his person, the one he trusted, the one who showed up when he needed someone most. Over time, he bonded just as deeply with Julio's whole family. And when he was finally cleared to leave the vet and go home, there was no question where that home was. Salmon had found it. They took the short family drive back toward the shop, but if Salmon thought he was going to move in and become the official store cat, he had another thing coming. Julio didn't take him to the shop. He took him next door, to the house. And there, waiting for him, was the perfect little setup. They already knew what kind of bed Salmon liked, so they got him a new one. Soft and snug, perfect for hiding and napping. They filled it with warm blankets, some toys, and since it was now winter and his little body had been through a lot, they even added a heated pad to help soothe his healing wounds. It was clear some days were still painful for him, especially when the cold settled in. But what caught his attention right away were the toys. It was like Salmon had never had any before. Now he had plenty. And out of all of them, no surprise. His favorite quickly became a soft little fish plushie. He carried it around constantly, like it was something special. That winter they kept him indoors. They were too worried he might wander off and get hurt again. But when the warmer months rolled around, they finally let him explore a little. He wore a tracker just in case, but honestly, they didn't really need it. Salmon only ever wandered as far as the fish shop next door to visit Julio, his dad, and greet the regulars. Sometimes a customer would sneak him a bit of fresh fish, and you can bet he wasn't about to turn that down. The cat who once showed up with a leaf to trade for food now had everything he could ever need. A warm home, a safe space, all the fish he could dream of, and most importantly, a family that loved him, no matter what. What more could any animal ask for? Thanks for watching. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We've got plenty more amazing stories coming your way.